IndieLisboa Directors Talks é uma conversa sobre cinema entre a nossa equipa e cineastas presentes no festival. Descobre mais sobre os nossos filmes e acompanha-nos em IndieLisboa.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the last IndieLisboa Directors Talk. These talks are being transmitted live stream on IndieLisboa social media. And then also it will be delivered as a podcast. I would like to welcome and also to thank the presence of two directors that are sitting next to me here that have films in the festival. On my right, I have Norika Sefa. She's the director of Looking for Venera. The film is at the festival, and she's competing for the best international feature, which is a section that we have for the best first, second, or third feature from director. And also here on my left, I have Bence Fliegauf, and he's the director of Forest I See You Everywhere, which is a program in the section Silvestre, in the competitive section of Silvestre. So the thing is, both of your films have already screened at the festival now, but still you are waiting for jury's decision. So maybe you can go home with prizes, which means also that the films can be screened again at the last 2 days of the festival, which is the 7th and the 8th. I want to thank you. Thank you for being here, and I hope we'll have a very interesting conversation about your films and hopefully find some connections between both of them. And I wanted to propose that we can start, if you could present a little bit your films for the people that are listening to us that haven't seen the films yet. So maybe you can start, Norika.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. Well, yes, last night I had the premiere of the film, and it was quite an interesting experience to actually be in the screening of my film within the Portuguese audience, because I think the reaction were completely different from any other screening I was present at. My film, I would describe it as kind of a piece, it tries to portray a piece of life coming from Kosovo, describing how it is to coexist in one house within three-generation family, and how much space does a character have to kind of articulate and grow on their own. Mm-hmm. When each of them have their own flaws and complexes, but because they live on the daily basis, they, instead of taking their lives in their hand, they try to delegate life responsibility to something like tradition, morals, and some hierarchy within the family, mm-hmm. as to move on. Mm-hmm. But the film focuses on this young girl who is 16 years old, and for me is an age that kind of is trying to decide who she is. It's like she doesn't take it for granted, this aspect. So as she tries to provoke a lot of things around her as to understand better about herself, she ends up provoking the others to think about who they are. This is mostly. I somehow always refuse to kind of end up describing a synopsis, because I thought like it's really a film that doesn't depend or chase a storyline, but mm-hmm. is based on the mood is created within the scene and putting together association and mindset of this character we try mm-hmm. to portray in the film. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Thank you. Before passing, it's funny because while preparing this, I was thinking of 3 or 4 elements that could bring your films together in order so we also can share about these common elements. And one of them that I haven't thought about it, and it made me think while listening to you, is the question of the house. Maybe we can talk about this later on. Mm-hmm. Can you just tell us about Forest?
Forest I See You Everywhere. This is a standalone sequel referring to the first feature that I made like 19 years ago, mm-hmm. long time ago. Mm-hmm. When I was in that position, I couldn't make films because I wasn't in the bunch of the filmmakers in Hungary. So my parents not coming from the culture thing, and it was a difficult situation, and I had to do something by myself, with my network. And then there were 20 years when I made very different kind of films, which went very well. Because with that film, I landed in the bunch of filmmakers in Hungary. And then I made those films, I made like 6 of them. And then I was out of the bunch again, because the government has changed and Mr. Orban arrived and so on. And then I prepared a feature film about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, but the HBO was faster, and that project is ruined. And then all of the sudden, even though it was a very well produced thing, but in the last minute it's ruined because of that film. And then I found myself in the same situation where I was 20 years ago, and I repeated that film. And what is that film? It's called Forest. The first was called Forest, the second one called Forest, I See You Everywhere. And the two films has no similarity between the characters. There is no continuity with the characters. These films are... They are kind of psychograms of people who are living in, Budapest downtown. Basically, that's the concept, to sneak into the people living room or bedroom and where they live, and where they got their privacy, and then we are sneaking there and we see that kind of conversations. So basically that's the plan. And in every city, wherever we are, whenever we are, this kind of things is going on in the rooms, and it creates some kind of, it's almost like a jazz of how the people communicate with each other. It's a kind of pattern of the language, the state of the language in that moment. It was the pattern in 20 years ago, and now it's another kind of pattern what I tried to catch with this film. So 6 episodes or 7 episodes dealing with upper middle class people, life crises, psychological issues, relationship issues, and that kind of stuff. Not referring to the political situation at all. That's also an important part. That's Forest, I See You Everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you. I was one of the things that I was thinking also of the Miguel, that one of the directors of the festival, that put up these matches of films. Of course, you have seen all the films. I was posing myself, why would he have chosen these 2 films together? And the first idea that came to my mind also, it was somehow this idea of closed space or claustrophobia in a sense. And of course, we can discuss these ideas in terms of narrative, but also in terms of film language. And what I find it interesting is that in different ways, in both of your films, there's this sense of, at least for the spectator, this sense of claustrophobia, and we sense that there was some goal by the end of the director to achieve this sense of claustrophobia in the sense of the village and also the house that you portraying. In your case, of course, it's you have these closed spaces, and now you're telling us a little bit more about how it would relate to the idea of the city. So my proposal for us to start to discuss is, how did you pose, if you've posed this idea of closed space, and what were the ideas that you had also in terms of cinematic practices? How do you film this?
I start, okay?
Sure.
My intention was really to describe this clash of energies within one space, and this perpetual need to kind of maintain order when there is no order. Because for me, family is such a complex matter. You take it for granted, but actually, if you think about it, no family can exist in peace because there are 2 different persons living within it. But I didn't want, and nothing in the film is told directly. So it's more in the feeling, it lingers in the feeling, you feel the claustrophobia, but nobody question it. And this was for me very important. And because I decided to work with non-actors, this also led a lot of how we decided to approach visuals, because basically everybody's non-actor when it comes to filmmaking. So when you approach these persons for the first time, and the casting took me a long time, for example, to find the main character, Venera, I casted like 1,300 girls until I found the right person. And why it was the right person? Because I wanted a young girl that is a woman. You can perceive it as such, but she's not aware of it. And I had to try to see who will be that person that could not get fast that punch of confidence of becoming a full woman with a camera or any artificial devices. Somebody that will not care about it. And of course, it's a process that you have to protect because she's very young, both of them, Darina and Venera. But Darina is not part of the family. She comes and goes and tells us about this liberty, about space outside of the home. So when we casted her and we decided to work with her, then it was like, where does the camera stand and how can we portray the space from afar, because she should not be very seen and see the camera and still have this portrayal of suffocation at home. And for me, of course, the suffocation comes because she's loaded. There is a lot of things happening and she knows she's seen and there is expectation towards her because she's growing up, she's becoming a woman in this very small community. But she doesn't necessarily participate in this stream of energies. So that before I decided to shoot, I was doing a lot of rehearsal in the same space we were deciding to shoot. So I could see, because for me, this is a film that tries to capture something that is happening in the set rather than storytelling. I try to bring that element in, like, while rehearsing. So when I saw that there is something happening, then I decided to let her perceive it the way she wants it. Because she could understand what is happening without really telling, oh, this is the story, we have to do this. And when I saw that happening, that I decided, okay, I will just take a frame of it and explain the movement in the background, because I don't have to follow her to make her aware that actually we are pointing at this. And it became much easier because you feel everything happening, but you don't participate, and those things come to you later on. And this is how you, also as an audience, you become loaded without knowing really why you're seeing these things. So you don't grasp immediately the intention of things, but this is how, like, we can feel loaded, because you are not, like, knowing, and because the film lacks this kind of orientation, this establishing shots, and then for sure this is how visually we try to tell that. But then, as about the home and this suffocation, I mean, I found this city that I decided to shoot very specific because it's such a weird city comparing with the tradition and morals we have in Kosovo. It's a city that has completely two worlds. It's a big mountain where the rules are completely different from the normal house and city where there is a patriarchy and so on. And finding this very edgy nature, for me it was like, but how does this Kosovo people work with these morals in such a very animalistic, country? And of course, this brought a lot of, like, okay, so where is the liberty and where is the suffocation? And it's sad and pity to say that suffocation is at home, which is the safest place in the film, and also in the tradition we have it in Kosovo, without having much space to move. And especially having now this is a more political issue, but we don't even have visa liberation, so there is no much reference to what is being free, So it's safer, not maybe more free, but it's safer at home. And this also made us think a lot about the energy between outside and inside, and Yeah.
I was wondering also about Forest as You Everywhere. If you, of course, the strategy, probably you will say it in a minute, it's very different to maybe achieve something that's in this order of claustrophobia. But I was wondering if there is also this kind of, this element of social condition in a way that also puts people together, in the sense that very practical stuff, like they are there together because they cannot afford a house to live in the different houses, or if they are together, because also if somebody needs help, it's way better to achieve this. So all these elements also contribute to a sense of everyday claustrophobia, and I think in many different countries where you go and to go, I've already had this experience, to go into a place where all different generations would coexist, and we say this claustrophobia is there, and we can only sense it when we arrive there, because we live from a different home.
Well, I think we are parasite of this. Like, we don't even question this, like we are for the home, because we are growing, and I'm not saying just growing with age, but growing as human beings by reflecting into each other, because it's like we are parasite of this coexistence. And this is what I try to portray in the film, that actually you are moving on by seeing the others how they see you, because it's such a closed space. So even if you go outside in a different home, you still need this subtraction. You need this to be reflected into somebody else, because it's very narrow society.
Yeah, exactly. I understand.
So it's,
Because you were also saying that in your film the characters are more upper class. So I think this also changes this dimension of claustrophobia.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the society, generally speaking. Like, the claustrophobia is everywhere. So you don't have to go for special spaces to find it. And you also don't need physical size to feel claustrophobic. But even if you have that one, like small rooms or just people forced to each other, then you just, at a certain point, you ask yourself, why this is happening at all? I mean, we build up the society. It looks like it's not. It looks like it's just coming like mushrooms, but it's not true. It's a consciously built up society where we are living. It can be tribalism. It can be urban way of living, or that kind of strange village something where what you made. But wherever we are, it's there. And the question is why we put this claustrophobia. What's the drive to build up this kind of claustrophobia? And my answer is that the people tend to, including myself, tend to depend on each other. That's the thing. And sometimes this dependency turns to a jail, a kind of psychological prison, where you cannot really go out. And there are several answers for that, why you don't leave that relationship. And I'm saying this because Forest, I See You Everywhere, it's really about the relationship between people, what kind of dynamic works between people, and how easily you see on other people relationship where's the toxic part of the patterns, but how easily can miss your toxic relationship in your life, and that kind of thing. And also the very bitter pill what I had to swallow is that there is no such a thing like I'm right with my opinion. It just doesn't make any sense. What we have is just interpretations meeting with each other. That's it, and we have to deal with it. For me, especially, it's a hard thing to digest. But I think all of us would be more conscious about it. What I'm saying now is that if I sing Forest I See Everywhere in the cinema, that's what I would interpret what I sing. I'm not saying that that was my intention to show it. It's just happened in the film. This is what I learned from that scenes. And for us, for this film, I mean, in Forest you see only extreme close-ups, and that's when the camera is just going from close-ups to close-ups. The close-ups not just on the faces, the close-ups also on hand gestures and some objects. That means when we with my colleagues when we, so it's a very bizarre situation because we have to, when you do such a film, then the casting, it's a production design itself. So there is no difference between the two because the landscape is the face of the actor. So we made, and that's very interesting to observe that kind of landscape is how the rhythm, how the chemistry, how the connections going on, and how the camera making this flow between the two people and between the and how it illustrates the dialogue.
That's one of the questions that I was asking myself while watching the film was, how did you work with, because there's obviously a very carefully written text, and also very one element that's very interesting is the way you choose to deliver slowly some very important bits of information. But what is interesting is also I was asking myself, how did you manage to orchestrate the relationship between the text and the movement of the camera? Was this carefully well staged all of the time with lots of trials, or did you have the camera trying to look for some moments more or less and trying to follow instinctively the situation?
Yeah, this is a very crucial question, a very complex question, because I think the DOP works is generally it's a profession, but you have to learn and you have to be, you have to see all the updated films, and then you have to know what kind of trends going on, and you have to deal with the production manager, with your dreams, and so on. And this is the professional part. And to be honest, I made very different films with very visual styles, and what I learned that the art part of the DOP work is that when the camera is on the shoulder, and if you are not, you don't do the choreography before the actions happening, because then the camera it turns to instrument rather than I don't know how that's something that you capture with, but also it's like an instrument, like a violin or whatever, but you have to play, and how the actors playing, and there is a rhythm between the actors, and the DOP cannot do. It's a very challenging situation for them because they have to follow the reactions. And I'm not saying that the other way of filmmaking is not art. For example, in your film, I found it extremely well done. Congratulations for that. How the actors was orchestrated actually in the space.
Yeah, I was thinking the same when you. I'm curious. Yeah.
That kind of thing, but that's something what the DOP and the director doing together. In some cases, the director put more energy for that kind of choreography, and but with this very minimalistic thing, what we did in Forest, it's a very huge thing on the shoulder of the DOP, because he has to be very present all the time. I think it's like jazz music in a way. Like there is a lot of improvisation with the hand gestures, and also the camera has to. I don't know what's this, but pan to actors to the other actors. So yeah, and if the scene is like 15 minutes long, what we have. Then and the DOP was paralyzed. Therefore, there were two DOP because you couldn't do it for like 8 hours to do this kind of things. Yeah, I mean, it's but we learn it, and you know, and to mix these two things, the preparation and the written down, strictly written down script, combine this with the spontaneous acts. That was the biggest challenge for me to because, as you said, the dialogues are very measured. If it works, then it's very measured, and then but then the DOP has to be very spontaneous with the camera sometimes.
I was wondering the question of, because I was also dealing, while thinking about the two films together, I was dealing with this element of, in a way, mystery and surprise. We are very surprised in some moments of the talks between these stories, but there's also well, looking for Venera, there's this also this maybe you can talk about the process of writing, and also you have already mentioned a little bit about the way you chose to put the camera, because I think there's a lot of mystery involved in the way that we are constantly being denied some basic elements that we as spectators are innocently looking for. Like somebody, if there's a main action and suddenly we don't see the face, we only see part of the body, and we don't even understand what the character is feeling. For example, there's this moment where she tries the black dress, and we only see I think a torso, and the mother is on the back. We only see the back, or there are more commonly, well, this one we see more often, but still, like the kids, and we never see the dogs, but we hear the dogs. So there's this, how do you manage to build this sort of idea of spatial or visual mystery in a way, because it kind of deals into this unknown and almost anonymous way of action, which I think it's something that you're trying to say with your film, like in a very close space and analyze that, where everybody looks at each other and judges each other. Sometimes the actions, it's better that they are seen anonymously and nobody knows exactly who said that or who did that, because there's always this fear of being judged.
Yeah, like for example, I just go from this part when you said like we see her back, and then we see in the back, in the foreground, the grandma is a grandma with her hair. For me, like doing this is a way to allow the audience to participate in the process of digesting the information we want to say, because it's very not informative film, and usually I avoid that. So for me, it's a way that when I see two elements together, then I'm the third one as an audience to decide how I would love to link these two. Because if we would have only the girl, like we see her back, of course we would have an opinion about her back, the back, or the opinion about the dress and so on, because it's visually stronger as an element. And I think we have this very clear idea how we work with visuals, especially today when we have Instagram and all this social media. We know how to interpret visuals immediately. So trying to put the audience in the new disposition of how to relate the visuals together is how to make the audience participating in the information that is happening mostly in the air and not directly. Because nothing directly happens in the family situation. There are things around, and you can fit or you can exclude yourself. And this was why it became so mysteriously in a way. Besides this, like as I told you, when you work with non-actors, and then there is this question from them, like, because a lot of people were chosen from the street, really. For example, the brother of Dorina, I said this in Q&A yesterday, so I remember that's the first thing. Like, I decided I bring these two main characters into this small town, and for the first time they met each other there. And of course they became friends because there is nobody else around them that they know better. And I followed them because I lived with them a long time before I shot the film, just observing and seeing like their taste, their reaction, and so on. So we go one night into a pub, and there is this guy that the brother of Dorina that is like being super how he is in the film, like having this kind of impulses and this reaction. And immediately I was like, okay, you come with me because I have something for you. And of course, if you have these characters, you cannot betray them by giving them a script and then deciding how you want to film them, because you are always so curious how they will bring this element you saw in a very natural environment now in this very combined relationship in front of the camera. So when I decided to work with them, their first question is like, what is so special about me that she takes me from the street and brings me? So for me, the script and the film became a way to provide this situation so these things comes again out, and by the end of the film they recognize, aha, is this what she saw in me? But you cannot betray this process. You have to allow them to find out, because otherwise it's so forced. That's why I think like the mother, like most of the people try to explain this film as a coming of age film. I think who comes of age the most is the people that surrounds Venera, because they start to see, aha, but she's recognized because I did this. And to allow this process to happen, of course, the camera has to be very static, and you have to do a lot of rehearsal before. Not rehearsal in the sense like you do. I mean, you see the mise-en-scène as a director. You understand why they are going to some specific place and what is happening between their body relationship, and that's how. Maybe that's why it becomes also a mysterious way of shooting, if you call it like that, because what I try to do is I always try to be curious of what is in front of me as a director. Like, it's a curiosity about the things I was choosing. So there is, like, it's very organic way of filming. In this case, like, I like a lot what you said about the camera not being very instrument. It's the same here, but it's just that me and my DOP is from Venezuela. He lives in France. And I chose to work with him because we worked in something very small before, but I chose to work with him because I wanted him to understand this idea of association together in one room without understanding the language. For me, it was not important that he knows what I'm talking to them. I wanted everybody to be so attentive what is happening in the room, and not know, aha, now this he talks to this. And so there was, even while shooting, this kind of energy in the air that we were all waiting for something to happen. And we got that, we knew immediately where the camera will be. So it's it's a different organical way to work with that, and especially if you were working with non-actors and with young girls, like young teenagers, in this case, girls, because you cannot push them. They will betray you, and you will betray yourself the way you talk to them.
Very interesting. Also, one element that you're saying, and I understand from what you're saying that it's very organic, so maybe it's abusive to think of your film as someone who tried to direct in terms of fragments. So each one worked as a fragment, but at the end, the notion of collage or puzzle becomes more in the mind of the spectator that probably throughout the process. But I was wondering the difference in the relationship. Maybe we can talk a little bit about this, about the relationship between what it is to build fragments, and also in the case of Forrest, to work with vignettes, to work with short stories. And also very interested to know how the writing process was, if it took a long time in order to collect the stories. And also, I think Miguel was writing this, and it's very, for me, I felt the same. This spectator, the audience, or we as spectator, we are trained to do connections. So we do, of course, these connections between the stories. Yeah. But also, my question is, was there any other way that you thought about while shooting the film of connections in terms of visual, not only narrative, but also visual, from one story to the other?
Yeah, the visual is simple because we use the same, only these extreme close-ups between people. So the visual was helped at what you said about to make that interpretation, which is kind of like it's a pattern recognition actually. When you see two things, and then we all the humans tends to think that those things, just because they are front of you, has some kind of connection. And the next step is when we think that the casuality between them is also there. So I have this because of that. And I kept it very, I didn't really thought about it when I made the film, what kind of connection between the episodes will be. I just made it in a way how I did the first one, which is I make the stories which are bugging me more. That's the simple concept. But before we go into this, I really have to say that this is a film. What I'm doing is just the second time I do this film, and perhaps there will be a third time. I don't know, but it's important to know that that these films coming in that time when I cannot have any support for my project. So that's also important. So because of especially because of the choosing the stories. Because the thing is, there are different type of directors. Some of them coming from the art, the fine art. Others come from the literature. I'm a writer. That means, and I'm not a poet, unfortunately. That would be easier. I'm writing prose, and if you write prose, that means you are over flooded with stories. Otherwise, you cannot write prose. But I am also I'm recognized as a filmmaker, so therefore that's the only channel what I can use to make this kind of things. And when I'm saying they are bugging me, I mean literally. It's like I cannot sleep. I have insomnia because of some stories, and it's going on for years. Or just months, but still they are very intense. And what I'm doing is simple. I just wake up and telling to my wife or the friend of my wife, because she has a lot, and for other people like workmates, and those people start to be excited about the ideas too, So and when I feel this, they understand. They also have this kind of obsession with this infection what I gave them with this story, then I feel, okay, this could be interesting. But that was very funny. When we finished the film and I give it to the editor, of course we edited the scenes before, but when we wanted to do the rough cut, then the editor told me that, listen, okay, I just made the scenes rough cut. Because these are big scenes, like 15-minute long sequences, and he said that, okay, that's great, but just tell me what's the connection between this episode and how it will turn to be one feature film. And I was shocked a bit because I never ever thought about it, and I thought that it's not gonna work in a way. Perhaps he's right, but then I just said to him, listen, we just have to figure out the approach towards that one. I have this and that and the
Juxtapose.
What?
Juxtapose.
The link?
Juxtapose.
No, the connect? No, not the connections. The
approach, not approach. It's the when I said and I say put the episode 1 for this and then the 4 there.
Yeah, the order of the
order.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, so I told him, listen, we just have to figure out the order and that's it. We just let's keep it in that practical way. And then we did it, and the vortex was there immediately, and of course for this you need this pattern recognition cognitive process to make the connection between the things. But I love to play with that, and I think I love to play with that because the life itself playing with that all the time. That kind of pattern recognition.
Yeah, we're always dealing with these patterns and trying to, in a way, to undermine to go against the notion of chaos. So we always try to do this order, little bits of order.
And I'm not really in the film technique, but as far as I know, there is no such a thing like moving picture. It's like still pictures coming next to each other in the order how you captured it, but these are stills. And something happening with a rolling, or I don't know what's happening with the digital thing, and then your brain make the movements. It's calculate the movements between the frames. So, yeah, it's a deep thing.
Yeah, I was also the question of course, with the extreme close-ups, we are really attentive to the landscape of the face, to the emotions. But there's always this idea of the spectator being really near, near the action. And I also feel this in looking for Venera in a very different way, but still the idea of trying to picture, trying to depict a place where eyeballs are very connected and close to one another and always judging one another. So my question is, how do you portray a little bit this idea, especially with the difference, because I felt that there's a lot of things not being said, so there's this presence and there's this also maybe afraid of the things being said between parents and children, or between men and women. So my question is, how did you conceptualize this idea of having a female protagonist, but also trying to, well, that's the question, if you tried or not to build around this idea of, in a way, male gaze, because I've seen these scenes, this scene, for example, where Venera and her friend go with their boyfriend and go to the coffee, and they say, oh, look, there's this man, and the men are looking at them. So in a way, there's this idea of men looking at women, but also women looking at men. So this circuit of gazes in a way. So I don't know if you can talk a bit about this in your film.
Well, I was not that conscious while shooting it, but then I recognized it while editing it. That because it became present, I edited my film myself, and then because the production was like, oh, maybe you are too young and it's your first feature film, maybe you need another eye. And then we found this editor that actually worked in some film from Kosovo, so he knew the way the things works. So we decided, okay, I will go for the lost hand, you know, like just through it. And then he also recognized, like, it's a lot about observation. Well, for me, it's like when I live in Kosovo, because I live in Czech Republic and move back and forth, and since from the war, I was like moving a lot around. I left Kosovo when I was very young, so I lived alone. But when I go there, I have this feeling that I'm so observed. And it's because of the weakness on really being so strong to have your own space, that you always depend on how the other sees you. And it becomes more, how to say, more present if this is an age of a young girl who is really checking who she is and is mirroring herself around. But I don't know if it was this, because I don't know if being observed in Kosovo made me think of this, or like Venera pushed a lot around this idea. But actually I recognized this when I made the film. Like, I was like, okay, I see a lot of things are happening just because of the looks, so I need to pay attention to this. And it's about the male and female. I think, no, I didn't think about, like, of course the male doesn't articulate themselves as lyrically as the women, so they want to make their presence by look, because their territory is by their look. And it's inevitably, like, it's not that I was pushing towards this, but it's how you, when you direct a man, immediately if you direct, like, they tell you with your eyes, like, I understand, don't go further, you know, like, I know my work now. Well, with women, they like to chat and they like to express themselves. With them, it's like a look, and you know how far they're seeing their space. And it was like this how we worked even in directing them. So it became part of the film language itself.
I was also posing this question because there was a very interesting thing that I've seen that you were saying, how did you end up choosing the role of the father?
Okay, yes. How did you know that? Where did
Well,
you hear it?
internet. It's
Okay,
very big.
okay.
So maybe you can talk a bit, because I think it has a little bit to do
Yeah.
with how that someone can go into your film as an actor or non-actor and introduce this idea of, let's not put it fight or conflict, but at least tension
Yeah.
between the male and the female, the father and the daughter.
Yeah,
Because I
actually,
think
it's a good way to describe this, because when I met the father who plays in the film, I was surprised. I mean, I could feel a tenderness to him, but not a fully complete tenderness, or he at least was not proud of the tenderness he had. Like he was kind of, how to say this, hiding it, you know, always with this very present male. And then I understand that he has 9 daughters, and I'm so surprised. I was like, 9 daughters, but why? Why do you keep making children? You have 8 already. Why? You know, of course, there's a tendency to make a boy, and until they make the boy, they don't. But okay, you have 9 daughters, and each of them is like a lifetime. And okay, I decided, okay, try, because I was about to talk in Albania. I tried this combination about a man with 9 daughters and Venera, the character I already have. And it was a very weird mix when I combined them in one room, because there was nothing happening in the talking. There was a lot of looks and how he tried to understand her by posing himself towards her. And I was like, okay, this gap it's gonna give me so much, not tantrum, because I didn't start with that like that, but a lot of potential to kind of work with this energy between them two. And yeah.
Would be great when I watch your film. I thought that it would be, if I would be a producer, then I would suggest to you to make a film exactly in a way how you did this one, and to do the same kind of story with portraying a young man, how he entering into because I also don't think it's a coming of age story. It's not that. It's simply because there is no coming of age story that doesn't exist, because every story is a coming of age story, you know.
Exactly.
So,
very good one. Yeah.
So but to a teenage boy who entering into the world of women, even though of course it's obvious from your film, and that's my little knowledge what I have about the Kosovo situation. It's a patriarchy. But even that would be very interesting to see what's happening with the teenage boy, how he entering in the sexuality. Or what's that? Is it sexuality, not just sexuality, but the whole, male identity?
Mature, yeah.
Mature.
Yeah. But I think I try to do this a bit, again, working just with the people I had, like with the non-actors or these personas I met, I find interesting, with Noel a bit. Because it's, for me, so interesting how he's also a bit, you know, you can recognize it's a kid grown up by the single mother. You know, I had this in Q&A last night that somebody actually said, is this true that he, in real life, he is? Because you can feel this. And it's true. He doesn't have a father. And the little boy, I mean, for me, Miri, the brother of Venera, is this kind of pure man that doesn't really recognize all these layers of how the society works. So is there a hint? But yeah, and I mean, I can understand more a female part of it than a male. Maybe I would describe, but I would not understand it. So.
Yeah, but because I would love to understand the way of that logic, what the males, this dominant machoism going on, what kind of patterns going on. You know, it's very actual. It's a very important topic right now, just to see what's going on in Afghanistan. So what's the logic? How that kind of things going on? Because I think it's a bit more difficult to portray that one, perhaps because what you said, I agree with that. The males are not that talkative about that, so therefore it's more, I don't know what kind of situation you would need rather than war and power to see to show that kind of male patterns would be interesting, especially if it would be done by a woman.
Yeah, I understand. You actually provoked the good thoughts on me, so thank you. Yeah, I understand you. I understand.
It's interesting. Maybe just coming back to one last thing, which is the let's put it like this opposition between closed spaces and open spaces or transition spaces. In your film, we see the house, and then but you also have the mountain, and you have the tunnel, and you have the buses and the cars, which are in a way elements of passage, or as I was saying before, some actions and dialogues or conversations are in between these anonymous, ongoing, apart from that closed space. And on forest, we've already tackled the question, this dimension of the house. But I think it's interesting because you were saying that in a way it works or builds up as a sort of real life scenario of the city, but also we get sense that of course there's these themes of the stories, like the guilt or the ignorance or infidelity or whatever, or that really the one with the doll, which is very frightening. And so if we sense that in a way characters are trapped in their own feelings and sometimes they couldn't get out of it. Yeah. And this is, let's say, in a darker way. But there's also the other, let's say, lighter way of looking at things. And I remind us, some years ago, there was this Pedro Costa. He had this opposition where he usually said that he usually filmed inside small, dark houses, and you say, okay, here in the black we have the space for imagination. Here it's the place where storytelling happens. When the characters go into this newer, open air, white walls, so there's no space for imagination because everything becomes clear enough. So, and I also reminded of that sentence because of the ending that comes to the. I don't want to spoil it too much. So. But also, my point is that house is not only a space to be trapped in some feeling, but also a space for storytelling, for a space for exchanging experiences, exchanging ideas. I don't know if you relate yourself to this idea or not.
Yeah, it's Forest is about what is going on behind the curtain. It's we just go there and we look at it. It's about we are selling out the intimacy of other people. We can't do that. It's ethical because I figured out this character. So their intimacy is my intimacy. Let's say that. And it can create very uncomfortable situation for the viewers, for the interpretation, and also how you transfer this understanding to your own personal life and relationships. But it's that when we go home and we start to speak with that one who is living there, whoever, it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, son, father, whatever. Then we have a story with that character, and then we have to play our character with their character, but all of us have very, very different stories going on. You know what I mean? So it's like Forest, I see you everywhere. This film is also about how the dialogue, what we plotting with each other, how it make a definition about ourselves. You have to have these little dramas. It's easy to say that why you are exaggerating that all those dramas that you have in your life, but all of a sudden you can find yourself in a very, very scary place when you have no dramas anymore. But we call deaths. When you die, you have no problems, and until you leave, you are a machine, produce problems, and you solve problems to have space to create another problem. And yeah, so this is also about, like every film, but especially for us, this is dealing with a kind of very thin distinction between the verbal language and the non-verbal languages. You see two different things. Foreigner viewers not really understand this little pattern of the Hungarian language, which are there. For that you have to live in Budapest. But therefore I was very surprised and very honored when the Berlinale Competition invited the film, and also when they give an award for that, I was like, this is a really big thing, and I'm honored. But this is okay. But there is this other level, which is the non-verbal level, and then you also see the distinction between the two, how one of them is fake, the other, yeah, that's. It's an anthropologist point of view, I think. If that wasn't my intention to do it. It just happened. But if I would see this film in the cinema, I would say that guy is an anthropologist, but he doesn't work with San people in Botswana with Bushmans, but he is working with Budapesters. That point of view, it's very strong in Forest. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say something more about.
No, I'm just so curious.
Yeah.
No, it was. I think it was a very good conversation.
Okay, so I want to thank you both for being here, for having the opportunity to have this conversation with you, and I hope you'll be able to catch up the films. Forest, I See You Everywhere, and looking for Venera. So I want to thank you for everything.
For the conversation.
So
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.